Go dear Rose. I'm about to spill some tea. Some plus size tea.
Hello, listeners. It's me, dear Rose. Welcome to Plus Size Tea with me. Come on in. I'm going to give you a few minutes to come in. If not, we always got the replay. The replay is just as good as the live version. For those of you that will be just tuning into my channel, Dear Rose, please like and subscribe and ring that bell so you can always know when I'm on. Plus Size Tea with Dear Rose always brings you the latest national news, hot topics, and celebrity tea. Yes, I hope you guys are enjoying my content. I see that I get a lot of replays instead of live views. That's fine with me. A view is a view. Thank you all for joining me. My channel is growing. I've gotten up to 250 some odd subscribers. I'm so excited about that. My birthday is Saturday, so that's awesome. On my Spotify channel, I have gotten up to over 1,000 plays, so that's another milestone. So I'm like celebrating not only my birthday this week, but I'm also celebrating the growth I've made on, both my platforms. I'm so excited. And I want to thank you guys for those of you that tune in to do the replays and those of you that listen to me on Spotify as well. I thank you all so much. I'm learning. I'm new to this, but I'm catching on. Okay, so I don't have any live viewers, but that's okay. Let's get started with the Kells. R. Kelly, the Ara, the Pied Piper, as they call him. He's back in the news again. After 2 years in a federal jail in Chicago, indicted singer R. Kelly has been brought to New York in preparation for his racketeering trial. That's scheduled to begin in Brooklyn later this summer. The U.S. Bureau of Prisons records show that Kelly is currently housed at a medium security detention center in Brooklyn. And we know that he's in the midst of, he just fired two of his lawyers, two of his main lawyers, and they are waiting for him to, hear from the judge that's handling some of these cases if it's okay to release the two lawyers. Let's get into a little bit more about it. R. Kelly has been moved from a detention center in Chicago, where he's been for 2 years, to New York, where he will likely stay ahead of his August federal trial, as he adds another New York-based attorney to his legal team. Two sources familiar with the matter said that Kelly arrived at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn Tuesday afternoon, and that he will likely stay there until his federal racketeering trial begins in August. CNN also reported that it's reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York and to an attorney for Kelly for comment on the move. Kelly, a Chicago native, has been held at the MCC Chicago for much of the time since his arrest in 2019 on federal charges involving racketeering, sex trafficking, and obstruction of justice. He was indicted in both Illinois and New York. At a June 17th hearing in Brooklyn, which is meant to address possible conflicts involving attorneys on his case, the U.S. District Judge Ann Donnelly asked for Kelly to be moved to New York so that she can conduct an in-person conflict hearing with him regarding his attorneys, and so that he can meet with his attorneys about the process in person. He has been appearing by video conference for his hearings during the pandemic. The conflict hearing came on the heels of charges to Kelly's legal team. Two Chicago-based attorneys, Steve Greenberg and Michael Leonard, asked to withdraw from Kelly's case, while Kelly's remaining attorneys, Tom Farinella and Nicole Becker, said Kelly had fired Greenberg and Leonard The conflict hearing was set to address alleged past interactions that Becker may have with witnesses who may be asked to testify in the trial, something she has denied. On Tuesday, New York attorney Devro Canick, a former assistant district attorney for the Bronx District Attorney's Office, filed a notice that he would be joining Kelly's legal team. CNN has reached out to Canick for comment. The court has also appointed another attorney. Let me make sure I pronounce this right. Lana Haramati to temporarily give Kelly independent legal counsel during the attorney conflict hearing. Finelli says CNN has reached out to Haramati also for comments. So this is an ongoing case for Kells. I hope that he gets his lawyer, his counsel straight. You know, it's not good to go to trial without having lawyers that are competent and able to handle the type of cases that R. Kelly has. His charges are very serious charges. As you heard in the article, he has racketeering charges, sex trafficking charges, and also a charge of obstruction. So I'm hoping that he does get his counsel in order. Everybody deserves a fair trial. He is innocent until proven guilty, and all of this is alleged. So let's move on. I'll be praying for you, Kells. I'll be praying for the victims as well. And hopefully this will soon be over. If it was me, I would rather go ahead on and get my time and go ahead on and start serving. This drawing out of things, kind of makes it worse. And I know during COVID, it must have been, hard, because I heard through the grapevine allegedly that he did have his lawyers to petition for him to be released during COVID, and the judge allegedly denied that, so he had to end up staying. So hopefully he will get all of that straight now. Okay, we're going to move on next to our beloved attorney Rudy Giuliani, the partner to our former President Trump. Sometimes we are loyal to a fault, and we're going to see what's going on with him. It has been reported that court suspends Giuliani's law license, citing Trump election lies. The former mayor of New York, once the top federal prosecutor in Manhattan, is temporarily barred from practicing law in the state and faces possible disbarment. That is sad news. He was such a high-powered attorney. Rudolph W. Giuliani, a former top federal prosecutor, New York City mayor, and lawyer to former President Trump, had his law license suspended after a New York court ruled on Thursday, which is today, that he made demonstrably false and misleading statements while fighting the results of the 2020 election on behalf of Donald J. Trump, our former president. The move was a humbling blow to a man who was once known as a law and order crusader, and whose political ambitions and creative courtroom tactics against mob bosses turned him into a fixture on national television. The New York State Appellate Court temporarily suspended Mr. Giuliani's law license on the recommendation of a disciplinary committee after finding he has sought to mislead judges, lawmakers, and the public as he helped shepherd Mr. Trump's legal challenge to the election results. For months, Mr. Giuliani, who was a former President Trump's personal lawyer, had argued without merit that the vote had been rife with fraud and that voting machines had been rigged. In its 33-page decision, the court said that Mr. Giuliani's actions represented an immediate threat to the public and that he had directly inflamed the tensions that led to the Capitol riot in January. The seriousness of the respondents' misconduct cannot be overstated. This country is being torn apart by continued attacks on the legitimacy of the 2020 election and our current president, Joseph R. Biden. The decision was read. Mr. Giuliani now faces disciplinary proceedings, which are typically closed to the public, uh, and can fight the suspension. But the court said in its decision that he would be likely to face permanent sanctions after the proceedings conclude. A final outcome could be months away, but could include punishment ranging from a written warning to disbarment. Mr. Giuliani's lawyer, John Leventhal and Barry Kamenis, said in a statement that they were disappointed that the panel had acted before holding a hearing on the allegations. This is This is unprecedented, and we believe that our client does not pose a present danger to the public's interest, they said. We believe that once the issues are fully explored at a hearing, Mr. Giuliani will be reinstated as a valued member of the legal profession, and that he has served so well in his many capacities for so many years. At least 3 ethics complaints had been publicly filed against Mr. Giuliani, including one earlier this year by a group of prominent lawyers who accused him of abusing the court system to undermine democracy. It is not known which complaint, if any, triggered the New York's court's investigation. Mr. Giuliani is also licensed to practice law in Washington, D.C., and the decision in New York could set off disciplinary proceedings there also, although it is not automatic. So I guess every jurisdiction does their own proceedings. It is rare for the court to temporarily suspend lawyers for making unethical public statements, according to lawyers who specialize in disciplinary proceedings, and it is more common in cases in which lawyers are accused of stealing money for clients. Wow. The practical impact of the decision was not clear, although Mr. Giuliani stated in his own law firm in 2019, it has been decades since he regularly argued in courtrooms. Before Mr. Giuliani became Mr. Trump's lawyer, he was running his own security consulting business. More recently, he has hosted a radio show and appeared in cigar commercials. Still, the suspension marked another stunning chapter in the rise and fall of Mr. Giuliani, once a legal and political star. He had enjoyed near hero status when, as a New York City mayor, he led the city through September 11, 2001, and terrorist attacks. Before that, he was a hard-charging prosecutor who was known for battling organized crime, corrupt politicians, but he is now being investigated by the United States Attorney's Office in Manhattan. Wow, what a change. The same office he once led and faces the prospect of being banned from his legal profession, in which he has worked for more than 5 decades. The federal investigation into Mr. Giuliani's centers on his dealings in the Ukraine before the 2020 election, when he sought to damage President Biden's credibility in April. FBI agents seized Mr. Giuliani's cell phones and computers, an extraordinary action to take against a lawyer for a former president. Wow. Prosecutors have been investigating whether Mr. Giuliani illegally lobbied the Trump administration in 2019 on behalf of Ukrainian officials and who were assisting Mr. Giuliani's efforts to dig up dirt in Ukraine on Mr. Biden and his son. Mr. Giuliani has denied any wrongdoing. The New York court's decision is not related to that investigation, but examined Mr. Giuliani's efforts to overturn the results of the November presidential election. On Thursday, Mr. Trump defended Mr. Giuliani, saying in a statement that all of the New York is out of control. Can you believe that? New York wants to strip Rudy Giuliani, a great American patriot, of his law license because he has been fighting for what has already been proven to be fraudulent election, Mr. Trump wrote. For nearly the moment from election day when Fox News declared that Mr. Biden had won Arizona, Mr. Giuliani urged Mr. Trump to fight the outcomes in a handful of battleground states. Mr. Trump tapped Mr. Giuliani to lead his legal efforts. But while Mr. Giuliani repeatedly claimed he could prove widespread fraud in the election, including showing that dead people had cast ballots, has offered no evidence supporting that contention in court. He traveled the country to press his claims with lawmakers in several battleground states. On January 6th, Mr. Giuliani addressed a rally by Trump supporters near the White House ahead of the certification of the Electoral College vote in Congress. Mr. Giuliani told the crowd he sought a trial by combat. A short time later, hundreds of Trump supporters left the rally and swarmed the Capitol, breaking into the building and threatening lawmakers. Oh my God. In Thursday's decision, the New York court said that false statements like the ones made by Mr. Giuliani tarnished the reputation of the entire legal profession. Mr. Giuliani's misconduct directly inflamed tensions and led to the Capitol riots, the court said. One only has to look at the ongoing present public discord over 2020 election, which erupted into violence, insurrection, and death on January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol to understand the extent of the damage that can be done when the public is misled by false information about the elections, the court wrote. The court noted, for instance, that Mr. Giuliani repeatedly claimed tens of thousands of underage teenagers had voted illegally in Georgia. An audit by the Georgia Office of the Secretary of State found that no one under the age of 18 had voted in the 2020 election. But Mr. Giuliani continued to repeat the false claim as recently as April 27th on his radio show, the court said, after a disciplinary committee had already petitioned the court to suspend his law license. He kept right on. He kept continuing. Before the court made its decision, Mr. Giuliani had argued in filings that he presented no threat to the public, promising to exercise personal discipline and no longer make any public statements about legal matters related to the 2020 election, the court said in its ruling. The fallout from Mr. Trump's efforts to overturn the election has ensnared several members of his legal team. Earlier this year, Dominion Voting Systems and Election Technology Company sued Mr. Giuliani and Sidney Powell, another Trump lawyer, accusing them of spreading a viral disinformation campaign about the company's machines manipulating vote tallies. In the defamation lawsuit against Mr. Giuliani, Dominion is seeking more than $1.3 billion in damages. Mr. Giuliani has called the suit an act of intimidation by the hate-filled left wing. The suspension of Mr. Giuliani's law license was not the first time his legal career has suffered from his association with Mr. Trump. In 2018, Mr. Giuliani abruptly resigned from his position as a partner at the law firm Greenberg and Tyrich after he clashed with the firm over his public statements in defense of hush money payments made on Mr. Trump's behalf to a pornographic film actress. In summer 2019, he started a law firm called Rudolph W. Giuliani, PLLC. In an interview a few months later, Mr. Giuliani said, "My legal practice is supporting me right now." He added with a laugh, "It's not doing really well because of the scrutiny surrounding his work with Mr. Trump." In the interview, Mr. Giuliani said that the firm represented people like me who are being tortured. Oh my goodness. So sometimes you're guilty due to association, but sometimes, you're given a chance. He was once a hero in New York. He was mayor during one of the hardest times we had in our country during 9/11. He was once a hero. He used to put lowlifes in prison. He stood up for the rights of others being mistreated. And he connected himself with someone that, although our former president had allowed his own self to override what this country stands for. And I understand that Mr. Giuliani wanted to stand by a former President Trump. I understand that he may even believe in some of the stances that President Trump believed in. But sometimes we have to stop and take a look at ourselves. Stop and worry about your own future. And you're not supposed to leave a friend. If you're a friend, you're a friend to the end. And I guess that's what he decided to do. He decided to stay on with former President Trump and defend his cause all the way to the end. And now look at what has happened to him. He is also being shamed politically. He's also, losing his long legacy of a career in law profession. And now he's, walking the walk of shame along with former President Trump. Some things happen to us for us to take a look at ourselves. Is there some coming back from this for former President Trump or Mr. Giuliani? Yes, I always believe that you can change your ways and you can become different and you can learn from your mistakes. You can turn it around and we can be women and men enough where we can say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. The way I thought was outdated, or I was misinformed, or I was so caught up in my own self-righteousness that I didn't think about others. And, there are good and bad things about every human being. But sometimes we allow our egos to override our best judgment. So I'm asking former President Trump and I'm asking lawyer Rudy Giuliani to take a look at yourselves, ask for forgiveness, change your ways. You can live this down. Anything could be lived down. You can do it. It's not too late to ever change. It's not too late. Okay, let's move on. Good luck to you both. Let's move on to Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle said he is not apologizing. He refuses to apologize. I don't know why he feels the way he does. Dave Chappelle says he not sorry he tore into Candace Owens, but apologizes for calling her articulate though. Okay, Dave Chappelle, fresh off reviving his habit of publicly nailing the Radiohead classic, Creep, discusses the likelihood of an apology to Candace Owens in a new episode of his recently launched podcast with Talib Kweli. Oh, excuse me. With Talib Kweli and Yassine Bey. At the top of the episode, which also features Jon Stewart, Chappelle brought the topic of Owens' apology to his co-host. There is no possible way that I owe Candace Owens an apology, he says. Is there? Chappelle asked, spewing agreement from the Midnight Miracle panel that he does not. In his surprise release Netflix special 846 last year, Chappelle spoke at length about Owens, particularly in response. Excuse me, my telephone is ringing. I am so sorry. Particularly in response to her widely condemned comments about the murder of George Floyd in this special. Chappelle called Owens an articulate idiot and pushed back against her attempts to convince American viewers that Floyd was a criminal anyway. I don't care if he personally kicked Candace Owens in her stinky pee, Chappelle said in the 2020 special, available in full above. I don't know if it stinks, but I imagine it does. If I ever find out, I'll let you know for sure. I'll tell like Azalea Banks. I'll tell. On the Midnight Miracle podcast following an assessment from Yasleen Bey that Owens is a mascot of colonial interest in America today. Chappelle addressed those lines. I did say that, but I also conceded that I don't know if her piece stinks or not, but that I was guessing that it probably does stink, he said. Around the 11-minute mark, would you like to know what I think it smells like? From there, Chappelle said comedians shouldn't apologize for jokes, as in his opinion, this sets a bad precedent. What he was responding to in the 2020 special, Chappelle added, was Owens being cruel and dangerous and completely the opposite of any black woman I've ever met in my life. Toward the end of the episode, however, Chappelle did offer a tongue-in-cheek apology for one line in his 2020 special. Oh, by the way, Candace Owens, I'm sorry I called you articulate, he said. For the full episode, which also includes Talib Khalil walking listeners through the peculiar history of Candace Owens and a spin of some new, they have I'll put the link in the description so that you can possibly watch the special, Dave Chappelle special. Evidently, Dave Chappelle felt like he was joking when he was talking about her private parts. He said he's not apologizing for talking about her private parts, but he did apologize for calling her an articulate idiot. I don't know which is the lesser of the two evils, but this is the second or third comedian that I heard or witnessed saying that why do they have to apologize for their jokes? Why do they have to be so politically correct? You know, what's going on? And I'm going to say the same thing I said about Charles Barkley, and he's not even a comedian. In the climate that we're in now, with social media, she is a black woman counterpart. She is a female, jokingly or not, to speak about her private part. Whether it's true or not, you were joking. Of course, we know you don't know her. We know you don't know her personally, but that was it wasn't tasteful at all. And in the climate that we're in, sometimes we forget that people do have feelings. You know, she is a black woman. She is supposed to be a queen in our culture. Although I know you were upset about her saying that, what's the difference that they killed him anyway? He was a criminal, but that's her opinion about George Floyd. We all know that George Floyd was slain by the hands of um, alleged white supremacist cops, or cops that are not have good judgment, morals, or values. So but that is her opinion, and we all fight to have a right to speak and say what we want. We all fight and have a right to say how we feel and to express ourselves. And although you expressed yourself in a distasteful way, a distasteful manner, you apologizing partially to her is just a stunner. It's just for the climate that we're in, for the movements that we're fighting for the justice that we're fighting for our own people. Dave, if you can find it in your heart to apologize to her fully for the things that you said. Yes, it may have been funny at the time with those that were around you. It may have gotten you, I don't know if you said it for, as we call it in YouTube streets, clicks and views. I don't know if that's why you did it, but that was, a distasteful joke. And I believe, I don't know if you apologizing to her now, maybe too late, but the possibility still stands that she may forgive you, because you are a comedian, you are a great asset to our culture, and we have to learn to respect one another. I'm not saying I'm not, even myself may say something that's distasteful or not PC or whatever. Everybody's going to fall at, everybody's going to fail at that. Everybody's going to end up offending someone in some kind of way or manner. But we should be all man and woman enough to ask for forgiveness or say, look, I didn't know that would have it offended you. I apologize for how I feel offended you, or what I said may have offended you, but that's my stance. That's what I was thinking at the time. Whatever, blah blah blah. But anyway, I really appreciate you being honest. I also feel that Candace was wrong in stating he's a criminal anyway, because Black lives do matter. Any life matters. Let the court render judgment on someone if they're guilty or not guilty. No one should be killed at the hands of someone the way that George Floyd was killed. And I believe she regrets saying those things. I believe she regrets making that statement. Maybe. Some people stick to say what they mean as mean what they say. I don't know. But it's a possibility. All right. And I wish you both the best. Moving on. Okay, so let's move on to the last story. And I got to get out of here. Let's move on to the building collapsing in Miami-Dade County. That was the oddest, strangest thing. So let's check that out right quick. And let's see. And see what exactly happened. Okay. All right, so NBC News, the cause of the Miami condo collapse unclear, but experts say Barrier Islands presents risk. 40-year-old buildings don't just collapse. And there's a whole series of them lining up and down the coast, said the lead of the real estate market analysis company. There are more questions than answers after a 12-story building collapsed in Surfside, Florida Thursday, leaving one person dead and injuring at least 10 others. Nearly 100 people are still unaccounted for in the small Miami Beach community. Local officials appear to have few ideas so far about what may have caused the 136-unit building to unexpectedly crumble. Scientists, however, have long noticed the risk of buildings on the shifting sands of the barrier islands like Miami Beach, especially with rising sea levels. They may not be the reason for the collapse, but in remains an engineering challenge to the region. I mean, the common sense to me said to me as well that there was a possibility that the sand shifted up under the building and caused the building to collapse, because you could tell that it was a side of the building that collapsed, not the whole building. So earth movement and shifting, the softness of the sand, so many buildings, the buildings are 40 years old, and building codes and things like that change. It's been what, 4 decades since the buildings were built. Building codes and construction, things like that, all types of licensures and permits and things like that have changed within the last 40 years. So I can just imagine. I feel sorry for the families that are still waiting to hear, if the family, it's over 100 people that's unaccounted for. The rescues are still searching through the rubble to find the missing people that were possibly occupied or residents of the building. And we're going to send out prayers for those people. And hopefully we can get an update to find out exactly why the building collapsed. But from my understanding in the article, the shifting earth up under the 40-year-old buildings caused that. And they said that there's 11 other buildings along that same line. And there's a possibility that they may have to evacuate, allegedly, for safety. And I would not want to live in one of those buildings. You'll never know when the earth may shift, fault lines, or anything like that may shift and cause another crumbling of a building. So I do appreciate you guys tuning in. For all of you that be doing the replay, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, share, so that you can always know when I'm on. If you want to give a donation to Plus Size Tea with Dear Rose, you can. If not, that's okay. Just you tuning in and listening to my content and growing with me is awesome. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for my 250 subscribers so far. And thank you for my plays on Spotify as well. I got over 1,000 plays now. And I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back again tomorrow. Love you. Smooches. Let me see. Can I play my ending now? I have an ending that I can play. Let's see. Thank you. Good night.